Good morning, Drew. How are you?
Morning, Drew.
Good, guys. It's always great to be on Inside the Locker Room with both of you in Tuscaloosa. Hope everything's going well. It's good to have, 2018 recruiting class as far as in the books for Alabama, but probably wasn't the finish everybody was looking for, but still got the two best players on their board in Jalen Waddle and also in Patrick Surtain in that late signing period.
Yeah, all right, Drew. That's what I want to talk about.
I want to ask one thing though before you do.
Sure, yes,
Is
sir.
there a lot of difference between 1 and 6? Is that just
No.
star crap that people put out? Is there a lot of difference between number 1 and number 6?
Well, Coach, you won't really know that for a couple of years. And,
Thank you.
In Alabama's case,
Thank
no,
you.
because they've already got, a very deep and talented roster. I mean, it certainly helps Georgia because they lost a lot of seniors, and they needed a talent, in fluctuation. But no, it's not, especially in Alabama's case, it's not, considered that big a deal. It's just, for Alabama fans who had 7 straight #1 classes. I mean, obviously they're not used to the finish that they had, but again, still they were able to meet their needs. And Surtain is a guy along with Jalen Waddle. Both of those guys can be instant impact players. And then the Ayabi Anoma, who I think is the other of the big three, signed early, and I think he can have a big impact as a freshman as a pass rusher also.
Yeah, well, there's not a big difference between 1 and 6. If 1 took 25 guys and 6 took 19, because they total up the points. To me, Clemson's amazing. They took less than 19, and they were ranked ahead of Alabama, so they must have knocked it out of the park with the guys that they signed. I want to talk about the ones they lost, Drew. I think they got a great class from what I can tell based on what you read about. I haven't seen any of these guys play. I know you've seen a lot of them. You watch a lot of tape. And I heard the story about Langham. They tried to hold him off because they thought they would get somebody better. They didn't, and they lost him because of it. But how do these guys that they really wanted, the Walkers, the Ross kid is going to Clemson, what's the story behind that? That's more alarming to me, the ones that they didn't reel in. Because I don't see it. I personally, I know maybe I'm looking at it because I live in Tuscaloosa. I don't see any of these guys tell Alabama no. Like, if they really want you, how in the world do you tell them no? What they've done on the field, winning rings, putting guys in the NFL, facilities are there. Why did they lose the few guys that they did?
Well, some of them, to me, in the end, if you're like a Quay Walker, he committed so early and then continued to make visits to other schools. He never seemed solid to me, and I think in the end, at times, some of these kids have doubts as to whether or not they can compete at Alabama and want to get on the field because they look at who's at the position and they see Dylan Moses, they see Chris Allen, they see guys that are already there and already earning playing time, and guys that are already getting on the field. And they worry about, and then they're giving the pitch that, well, you won't play until you're a junior. And so they start worrying about, whether or not they're going to be on the field, early in their career. So I think in some cases that's what happened. In the case of Justin Ross, it was somewhat surprising because it is a state of Alabama kid. But he was, I think, overall during the summer when he was at the opening and in other places, I think, being able to, be a teammate with Trevor Lawrence, who's the #1 quarterback in the country, I think he became enamored with playing with him. Also, Alabama did struggle some of the passing game until Tua played in the national championship game. So there was some doubt in his mind, too, I think, maybe about still Alabama offensively and what they're going to do going forward. I'm sure some seeds playing it there with some doubt. So, and I think, he battled with it. Justin did as to whether or not to stay in state or go out of state to Clemson. And I think overall, Dabo, I give him a lot of credit. He's a great recruiter. You just made a great point about what he's done the last 2 years. The last 2 years, actually, they haven't signed nearly a full class of 25, and yet they've been solidly in the top 10 because they've been recruiting. And he's been able to grow their brand due to their playoff success and winning a national championship. So I think it was a perfect storm with Justin Ross. They decided he just decided he wanted to go to Clemson, and felt like with their success at wide receiver, which has been just about as significant as Alabama's, that he could go there, and make an immediate impact. Malik Langham, Bobby Brown tossed him Malik Langham to me and Glenn Beal, because those guys would have been defensive linemen, but Coach Saban, they believed what they were hearing from Bobby Brown in his camp, and I can tell you at 7:15 a.m. on signing day, the second national signing day, Bobby Brown told him he was coming to Alabama, and then 15 minutes later signed with A&M. So the thing is, they high-strapped their wagon to Brown, and it cost them Malik Langham because they were inconsistent with the message to Langham, from Monday till Wednesday of the last week of National Signing Day. He went to Florida. Glenn Beal had been ready to come, 2 weeks ago, but they were trying to decide whether to take Beal or Langham. They had decided to take Beal on Tuesday. They thought they had Beal, but then Texas A&M came in, convinced the mother that staying or going to Texas A&M was going to be better for his future, and so there you go. So then you lose Beal as well. So if they had been more consistent with their message and they really decided to turn up the heat on Beal late, they had turned up the heat on both those guys, for a couple of weeks. I think they get Glenn Beal and Malik Langham, and they probably should have just let Bobby Brown go. And I think Nick Saban kind of realizes now with this early signing period, if you got the Quay Walkers, the Bobby Browns, the Vernon Jackson, and they're committed to you and don't sign in the early signing period, you need to kind of pretty much just start over from scratch in that late period and let those young men go where they want to go, and then you just concentrate on other guys.
Yeah, I think maybe they got burned there. And if the kid tells you that, he tells you he's coming, then 15 minutes later signs with Texas A&M.
Well, the answer to the question is, in the heat of the battle with things going back and forth, they did a little bit better convincing him. It's called recruiting. They did a little bit better. And the whole key, not to Drew's, what Drew does and all the people that do what he does, but the whole key is the one sentence that Drew said at the very beginning of the show. I'll tell you in 2 years. I'll tell you in 2 years whether 6 is better than 6 is as good as 1. And you can't, now Drew don't do that because Drew's doing what he does very, very well. But the answer to the cotton picking question is, I'll tell you in 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think people, Drew, and I'm going to get you to comment on this. I don't think people understand the immense, that's a word, pressure on these kids to make the final decision, because they get great relationships with all of these staffs, and even if they cut it to 5, I will guarantee you Brown told Texas A&M he was coming there too, and he told Alabama he was coming there. Well, guess what? He can't go but to 1, and they don't, and it's no disrespect to them or even their high school coaches, they don't know how to tell somebody no. And Nick Saban's gotten a no before. All these guys have gotten no's before. They need to know the real deal so they can go on and do what they got to do. But I think the pressure is so hard, and these guys don't know how to say no and tell one that they get scared and they don't know how to handle it. Do you see that, Drew, as you go through the final? I'm talking about the final decision. Now, they love the recruiting process, but the decision is really, really tough on these kids to tell somebody no.
Oh, it is, Coach. And I can tell you with Malik Langham, he had made up his mind late on Monday that he was going to go to Florida. And then by Tuesday night, he was getting blown up by Alabama and Auburn because they, were trying to make a late push, trying to get him to flip, and trying to make sure that he was going to be in their class because Auburn wanted him also. And then by Wednesday morning, he was unsure of what he was going to do.
Yeah.
He was pretty sure it was going to be Florida on Tuesday night. And then by the time he woke up, he was on the phone with coaches, he and his mother, all the way down through midnight on Tuesday before he woke up on Wednesday. And he didn't make the final decision on Florida until around lunchtime when he signed with the Gators on Wednesday. So it was a hectic situation. He's going to have a chance to make an impact with Dan Mullen in Florida, but I can tell you without beyond a shadow of a doubt, the recruiting goes on until they sign that paper on Wednesday, and it can be a very stressful kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you that kid. I'm sorry, Dad. I bet you that kid, he's still waking up, not sure if he made the right decision. I mean, it's hard on a 18-year-old kid to finalize that thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dad.